So it's Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined once again by my good friend, cruiserweight legend and top pundit, Johnny Nelson MBE. And Johnny, surprisingly energetic this morning, given you're in the midst of an 86-hour fast. Why? Why would you want to do this to yourself?
You know what, Danny? I think probably I've probably got to give it to AJ for that. I remember being in Saudi, and he was going into the press conference before the fight. We're walking down. I said, "How much you weighing?" And he said, "I said, you what, about 17, 14?" Yeah, and I was like 19 stone 3, and I was looking at him thinking, "This boy's like." What? I'm looking at him, I'm looking at me. I'm thinking, Johnny, you've got to sort your business out, man. You're looking like a little old fat man. So that was my motivation to get myself back in shape again. And best thing I did, mentally, physically. Fasting is mainly for that, the mental side of it, mental discipline. And I do benefit physically as well. But I always tell people to do the research in regards to fasting. It's so underrated. And I did Ramadan actually, and it's harder because I'm not even a Muslim. So
dedication.
Yeah, so it was just I just wanted to know I could do it. And then I should have done this 86-hour fast at the beginning of April, but obviously Ramadan was on, so I thought, and quite a few people said they want to do it with me. So I said, all right, we'll do it at the end of April. So we're on. So I've got to check in with everybody, do a little post every day to make sure they're good.
And as we talk now, how far in are you? Is it, 14 hours?
It's nothing nice. It's 14 hours. It's only 10 o'clock, or 11 o'clock, whatever time it is. So you probably don't feel the angst of it until probably maybe Sunday night, Monday. Yeah, probably Sunday afternoon. And it's more boredom more than anything else. It's more mental habit you've got to get out of more than anything else. So, but yeah, it can be done. It's just habits. You've got to create good habits.
So really, we're doing you a favour by keeping you busy.
Well, actually, I'm preparing my grass to do my grass banks, and like there's a dark cloud coming over, so I'll be doing it in the rain, keep myself busy. So yeah.
Well, I'm full of admiration, Johnny. I got to say, I was saying to Jem earlier, I couldn't deny myself food for 86 minutes, never mind 86 hours.
You can.
Boxer have just announced a huge fight, of course, in your old division, world title fight. Starting to remind me a little bit this era of kind of the British super middleweights 20 or more years ago. You know, you've got all the kind of top cruiserweights domestically with Boxer and Sky Sports, and now you've got a rematch between Chris Billam-Smith, now world champion, of course, and Richard Riakporhe, unbeaten, and the only person to have beaten CBS. Great fight, surely.
It is a great fight, and again, when you're talking about the super middleweight division, every division has its era. The cruiserweights have never really had its era until the last few years lately, because you have dance partners. You know, when I was, coming through, there wasn't enough dance partners. Cruiserweight was relatively new. There wasn't enough glamour around it. Now you've got good-looking devils like Richard Riakporhe, perfect gentlemen like Chris Billam-Smith, and you've got guys that nobody wants to fight, but they are nightmares, and Lawrence Okoli. We have actually got a pretty good crop of domestic relationships. So now, and worldwide as well. So, and I think this is a good fight. I think it's a dangerous fight for Richard, because Richard knows he has to beat him of Chris Billam-Smith. So, and what happens in that is when you go in there with touch of complacency, touch of knowledge, it then dampens your nervous, the nerves you need to box to the best of your ability. So Richard knows he's got his number, and so the new version of Chris Billam-Smith he's gone in with. Chris Billam-Smith believes in himself even more. This guy thinks I can do this, even though he's getting in there with a guy that can beat him. He contest the loss, but Richard needs to go in there not expecting the win. He's got to go in there like a hungry, chasing challenger, hunter. And if he does that on the last performance I saw him, he'll get it. If he doesn't, and there's a touch of complacency, Chris Billam-Smith is a tough champion that still fights like a challenger, because he doesn't believe he's the best in the world yet. And there's only a handful of champions that are classed as world champions that actually believe they are the best fighter in the world. I know it sounds silly, but there are only a handful of champions that are classed as world champions, call themselves world champions, whatever division they're in, that actually believe I am the best fighter in the world. And they no matter what they say, and I don't think Chris believes he's the best fighter in the world, but he believes that he can get there. But at the moment, this is part of the test. This is part of the thing where he's got to pick up, think, oh, I'll do this. I've got to do this. So there's jeopardy in both for both fighters.
Who do you think's improved more from their first fight?
Richard Riakporhe. I think Richard Riakporhe. Look at his last fight. He's let his hands go. You know, he worked with intention. He went hunting, and I always said with Richard, I've seen a guy. You know, I said, you let your hands go, man. You can bang, you can punch. And I at times I worried he was a bit like AJ, where he overthought letting the shots go, overthought instincts. So letting the jab go, letting the right hand go. Because whenever he did, you saw you got amazing knockouts. And so I think Richard, after his last ball, I said, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. You take that attitude in there. You let those hands go. You hunt. You're a big guy that can punch, that can give nightmares. He's a completely different fighter. For Chris Billam-Smith, I think Chris has an amazing heart. I think stubborn determination. So you're never going to break his heart. You're never going to break his determination. I do worry that he gets hit far too clean, far too often. And so I do worry that in the long term, we will see that one day when he gets in the ring. So I just needs to protect himself a lot more, move his head a lot more. I know you're tough. I know you've got stamina. I know, and he's such a nice guy, but he gets hit too much. And this is a guy talking about that's been there. I've seen fighters come through. I've done that. I've seen fighters come from getting hit too much, and I see the after effect. Where the fans don't care. I'd like to see Chris moving his head a bit more upper movement. I don't know if he's capable of doing that, but he's world champion. So now whilst he's up there, he's got to make hay while the sun shines.
And it's going to be a great spectacle, of course, at Selhurst Park. Very nice for Richard Riakporhe as well, that he doesn't have to go down to Bournemouth, which has become a bit of a stronghold for CBS. How likely do you think it is that Boxer Sky, the fighters, can pack that place out? Because it seems quite ambitious from the outside.
Well, you know, that's what they said about, I'm not saying it's of that level, but that's what they said initially when they talked about Carl Froch and George Groves. There was a big debate whether or not they should make that at Wembley. You know, there was a massive debate, and they did. You know, I can't remember how much people got in there. I'm sure Carl will remind me. And I'm not saying it's on that scale, but what I'm saying is you've got to work ambitiously to get these situations in. And if it doesn't work, you'll close part of the ground off. I'd love to go back to Bournemouth. I love Bournemouth. The crowd, the support, being there in the summer for a big fight. You know, I'm like, why have we never done this before? So I think Boxer, you know, they found a nice little spot there. And so in a way, you hope Chris wins so we can go back to Bournemouth, or we hope we discover more talent in Bournemouth, so we have an excuse to go back. But then you look at Richard Riakporhe. Richard's, you know, he's done his job, and this guy can have that crossover appeal. He has a life away from boxing, even though he trains like a lunatic. He has a life away from boxing, where he's one of those fighters that, again, he just has that David Haye appeal about him, where he has that crossover appeal. Like Gary Stretch, you guys won't know who he is. Who has that crossover appeal.
Yeah,
that crossover appeal where he's in glamour, he's also in a real life sport. Because you've got to remember, boxing is the only sport where people pretend and would love to be able to do. Actors never did love to be able to do that. You know, so it's that glamorous sport. You look at ringside, you see who it attracts and what kind of people it attracts. That's why our sport is so different, so unique. Richard's in a unique position where he can draw the two together.
Gary Stretch, just for people out there who don't know, he was a very charismatic welterweight, I think super welterweight towards the end of his career, and latterly an actor, a model. It was in Dead Man's Shoes, really good in that, actually.
And he ended up being a porn star as well.
Oh, did he? I wasn't aware of that bit, Johnny.
Allegedly.
Let's not compare search histories. Fair play to him, whatever brings the money in, I suppose. Talking of boxer, we've seen recently Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn kind of making nice, working together for the good of their bank balances, if not for the sport as well, I guess.
Yeah.
But there seems to be a new feud now between Matchroom and Boxer, which I suppose emanated from the purse bid situations. There was a number of those where Boxer withdrew their fighters. Matchroom will say they shouldn't have done it so late on. Boxer will say they're just doing what's best for their fighters. And then there's been a bit of a war of words. I think Ben Shalom said that he thinks Eddie Hearn might be jealous or envious of his situation.
I think he maybe was talking about Frank Smith rather than Eddie
Frank
Hearn.
Smith. And then Frank Smith hit back yesterday saying Ben Shalom's not even on Eddie Hearn's radar. They're never going to be friends. He doesn't like him and that kind of thing. What do you make of this kind of new rivalry?
Well, you look at what's happening to Ben. The same thing happened to Eddie when he first came on the scene. The same thing happened to Frank when he first came on the scene. When you go in against the existing guard, these guys that are fighting against each other will club together to put the new kid's head down the toilet. Ben's a new kid. And so they'll try and shut him out. They'll try and undermine him. They'll try everything possible to say this kid's a fool. That's what happens. That's what with Eddie. He's been sort with his dad, Barry. And I definitely saw it with Frank. This is part of the game. That's part of the game. In regards to factually, Ben's got to make sure he has a stable that he's got to make sure he can provide. And so sometimes he's got to lose a battle to win a war. So if he's pulling fighters out and putting them in at a later date, such as Fabio Wardley and God, the heavyweight again, from Derby, Fraser Clark. Initially when Fraser was pulled out of that, he got so much stick, and the fight went on further down the line. So sometimes you've got to lose a battle to win a war, and if you've got a smart opposition, as in Eddie, you're giving them fodder. You're giving them cannon fodder where they can destroy you. They'll try and undermine you. Say, call everything. Try and press you. It's part of the game. I do remember Frank Warren saying to me when I was under Frank Warren, he said, "Johnny, I have to work with a lot of people I don't like, but this is business." And I'm quite sure that same sentiment sticks. It's business. So whatever these guys say publicly, at the moment, it's business, and that's why if everybody has something to say about somebody. You've got Frank Warren and Eddie working together, where these guys never spoke to each other before. I hear Frank Warren socially away from boxing. He's a good laugh. He's a good crack.
Yeah.
He's into his Northern soul. This man's got. But we know him through the boxing. So away from boxing, he's a cool guy. Eddie, this guy's got everything going for him. Rich, handsome, smart, sharp. Could do anything he wanted, and he knows it. I looked at the piece that he did with Piers Morgan and his dad. Loved it, absolutely loved it. You saw a different side, and you understood Eddie a lot better. Ben has to get to that stage where you get to understand the character, the young man behind it, and then you can sympathize and understand who he is and why he does what he is. This is business. I suppose it's like a fighter being a certain character on camera, off camera. That's not who they are. So what do I make of it all? It's business, and it gets us talking. It gets the public talking.
Having worked with both of them in your role at Sky, Ben Shalom, Eddie Hearn, how are they similar and how are they different in your experience?
They're not. There's no similarity at all. There's no similarity at all. Ben is coming through. He's trying. Ben knows he's going to take some licks. Ben's learning on the job. Ben doesn't talk like Eddie, and he's not disrespecting his intelligence. What it is, it's actually telling Ben. He's actually saying, you know what, this is where we are. And Ben is learning on the job, so maybe he'll change character, maybe he'll be different down the line, and he'll grow into it. Whereas Eddie, I know Eddie's been in boxing from, well, I remember it 11 years old when I boxed for the European title. So he's been surrounded by that, and so therefore it's in his blood. And Eddie could talk his way out of a bullet coming in his direction, and that's through experience of life and upbringing. So there's no similarities whatsoever. They're just both boxing promoters, and that's it.
Now, I mentioned the 5 versus 5 just now. You're in the unique position that you're completely neutral as regards to relationships with any of the fighters or promoters involved. So let me just quickly run through the 5 fights, and we'll
Yeah.
see who ends up the winner on your unofficial scorecard. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll start with the top heavyweight fights. You've got Zhilei Zhang going up against Deontay Wilder. Who do you fancy in that one?
That's a tough one because if you're going on past performances, you say Zhilei Zhang. I would still lean towards Zhilei Zhang, even though he's there to be hit, but he can take a shot. But I know Deontay Wilder is, I've never seen anybody hit so hard, with so powerful. So I wonder what Zhang would be like once he's hit, because he will get hit by Wilder. But I'm going Zhang. I think we've seen the best of of um, of Wilder, and or maybe it was just a bad night. But I think now we've seen the best of him. So I'm going Zhang. So
That's,
if Zhang's with Frank,
yeah.
that's 1-0 to Frank. That's 1-0 to Frank.
1-0 to Frank. And also, Captain Wilder doesn't get his double points, unfortunately, for Eddie.
No, he doesn't. But the thing is, even if Wilder lost, there is still a fight out there that is going to happen, and that's obviously him against Anthony Joshua. That's obvious. That is going to happen, no matter what they say. That's going to happen.
All right, and then the other heavyweight fight on the bill, and there's a lot at stake in this one because it's for the IBF #1 spot as well, and that's probably the next mandatory that's going to be called. You've got Daniel Dubois coming off a good win over Jarrell Miller, going up against Filip Hrgovic, who hasn't looked great recently, but very, very solid fighter, very good amateur.
Yeah. So Daniel Dubois, I think I was so happy when he beat Jerome Miller because and he was tested at times to come through. And his character was tested, his heart was tested. But I would say this one would be 1-0 to 1-0. I think Daniel falls short because he's in against an opponent that has a stubborn determination. Yes, he has flaws in his character, but I just think he'll be too consistent, putting Daniel under pressure.
Okay, good. So that's 1-1, delicately poised. And then light heavyweight, if we're going down the divisions in order, you've got Craig Spider Richards representing Matchroom against Willie the Hutch Train, or Hurricane, I think it is now, Willie Hutchinson for Frank Warren.
I'm going Craig Spider Richards. I'm going Craig Spider Richards because you have to go to get wisdom. You've got to go through experiences, both good and bad. I think this guy's earned his stripes. I think this guy's, if he's gonna learn from his experiences, now's the time where it's payback. And I think this is it. Hard fight. I could see it going the distance. But I'd say that would make it 2-1 to Eddie.
2-1 to Eddie, but then Frank Warren's captain, Hamza Shiraz, steps up against Amo Williams representing Matchroom. And for most people, I think, that I've spoken to, this is the closest to a 50-50. I mean, you could say they're all 50-50s, but this is the real tough one to call.
I'm going Amo. I'm going Amo because I've seen the development of this fighter. There's not much I can think negatively about him, bar experience. And so I would lean towards Amo. It's a good fight, a very good fight, and it's a definitely 50-50, so it can go either way. But I would lean towards Amo, making it 3-1 to Eddie.
Wow. So in an unassailable lead now as well. But we'll still ask you about the fourth one just to see what the final score would be on your unofficial card. Nick Ball, very unlucky not to already be a world champion after that draw with Ray Vargas. Going up against Ray Ford, representing Matchroom, who won his own world title in spectacular fashion while behind on the cards against Kolmatov. That seems like a exciting fighting prospect.
I'm going Nick Ball. Nick Ball, I saw this man. I looked at him, and then looked at the fight in him. I thought, for the size of him, to do what he did, to put his opponent under such pressure, I thought, wow, you are a lot stronger. You are a lot more aggressive. You are a lot more determined than what anybody could ever give. And when I saw him in action, I'm saying that this makes it 3-2 because I believe Nick Ball pulls it off. I think Nick Ball is. I underrated him, and when I saw him firsthand, I thought, oh, I get it. I see it, and he's such an honest pro, such an honest pro.
So 3-2 to Eddie overall, and I think what we've learned more than anything is that both have picked probably the wrong captains.
I believe that. I believe that, but you know, it's interesting. I hope it's not the last of this kind of clash, but when there's a lot of money on the table, you know, these guys, this is the only way you're going to get these guys, promoters, to work together, because the fighters want to fight each other. It's no slant on the fighters, A, not fighting B. It's the fighters do, but it's the businessmen behind the fighters that are usually to blame. But it's business, and boxing is a sport, becoming a sport. Boxing is becoming business disguised as a sport, and that's what it is.
Now, before I let you go, I have to ask about one other fight, and you've become kind of synonymous with this fight and your comments on it over the last few months, and that's in 3 weeks tonight. Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk, touch wood, will actually be entering the ring to face each other.
Yeah.
First ever heavyweight undisputed fight in the 4-belt era. You said previously, or you at least questioned, if Tyson Fury's legs had gone after the subpar performance against Francis Ngannou. Since then, we've had the cut, we've had back in training camp looking good. Usyk stayed relatively quiet, apart from one exclusive interview with Seconds Out, which, you know, I have to plug. Has your view on the fight changed over the last few months, especially since the cut and Fury getting back in training?
I've always said, and I've always stuck to it, you know, and obviously, listen, it's tongue in cheek when I said Tyson Fury's legs have gone. His legs have gone because I was calling out a lie, saying it was his best training camp. So he's just just fattening up that the reason why I said that it was a lie. And so therefore I said, if you had your best training camp, then your legs have gone. We all know he didn't. You could see physically. You compare that Tyson Fury to this Tyson Fury, it's quite evident he was lying. So I was just playing the fool like he was.
Playing the fool to catch the wires.
There you go. Play the fool to catch the wires. I think the best version of Tyson Fury beats Oleksandr Usyk, but it has to be the best version. I also believe that this fight will be very close, and I also believe there's going to be controversy. That's only because I had a dream. I also believe.
Oh, you've got to tell us about it now, Johnny. You can't just leave it there.
You know what? I was away. I had the dream. I'm like, oh man, why has that popped into my head? I'm thinking, do I say anything? Shut your mouth. Do I say anything? Shut your mouth. And I can remember having these dreams, and Brendan would say, I'd say, Brendan, I've won this fight. And he'd say, all right, but don't tell anybody. And I do it. And so I'm not saying anything, obviously, because people think you're a nutter. My dream was, it was a controversial decision, and Tyson Fury wasn't happy with it. Now, that can go either way. It could be Tyson Fury won, but he didn't deserve to win, and people are giving him hassle, and he said, no, I won. Or Tyson Fury lost, and he believed he won. But he wasn't happy with the decision, put it that way. But it was a controversial one. And in the fight, in my dream, he also got a point taken away from him, which I believe could happen, because if the pressure's on him, Tyson, he himself, so I'm not saying anything out of order, when he spoke about fighting on Ngannou, he said, I hit him clean with the elbow. This man walked straight through with it. So he acknowledged what he did.
Yeah.
He acknowledged what he did. So he's prepared to go use the dark arts. It's boxing. It's a fight game. He's prepared to do what he's got to do to put his man in his place. I think the referee, I think they will be very watchful of this. They'll have an eagle eye on this. And I think Tyson Fury will get a point deducted, one if not two, if the fight gets too hard for him, or because it's not going to be an easy night. But I do think the best version of Tyson Fury, in saying that, beats Oleksandr Usyk. But if he's not the best version, Oleksandr Usyk, you know, he gets to a tough fight. Styles make fights, and Oleksandr Usyk is coming up against a kind of mirror image. And I'm not saying Tyson's as smooth as Oleksandr Usyk, because Tyson can box southpaw, orthodox, offensively, defensively, side to side. He can do it all. He can fight dirty. You know, he can fight smart. He starts a fight long before you've actually got in the ring. I think the problem for Tyson in this one is, and I don't know if it's true or not, I read somewhere that once the fight was signed, Tyson said to Usyk, "Come on, let's go on holiday. Our families go on holiday and get, if it's true, it tells me." Do you remember Sugar Ray Leonard when he boxed Marvin Hagler? Those two guys were friends, and Hagler didn't know he was fighting him. They'd even been out for a hit. They went out with their wives the night before. And then the next day, he read in the paper that Sugar Ray Leonard wants to fight him. Sugar Ray Leonard was getting to know the character of the fighter. I think Tyson Fury wants to try and get in him, try and get into the psyche of Usyk, because everything he's doing and saying is being lost in translation. He's not getting the response he wants. The first time we saw him head to head, Tyson's got his head in his chest. Usyk, stood his ground, but he didn't go mad. So Tyson didn't get the reaction he's got. When he's kept calling him a gap tooth, whatever it is, Fury's like, Usyk's like, he's not giving the response he wants. Now you've got to understand that this is the fight game. Tyson's great. He's got to be the best four player in boxing today. If you're fighting Tyson, he'll either play the fool to catch the wise, like he did with Klitschko. Klitschko didn't respect him. I was there. Klitschko looked at him. Look at this guy singing in the ring. Look at this guy, being a little Marios. And Tyson did a job on him. I was there, and I was one of the very few that said Tyson will do him. And then you saw what he did with, let's say Dylan White. Dylan White, he didn't mess with Dylan, but so he showed respect to Dylan, which made Dylan drop his guard. And even at the way that he's laughing and joking, and Dylan suckered into it. Dylan's dancing with us. Oh, Dylan, what you doing, man? He's not your friend, man. This is business. Keep it out. And so once he suckered him into saying, "We're all right, Mucker. We're all right. We're good," then does it. Same with Derek Chisora. So he's getting to know the character to find out whether or not you can bully them, cajole them, befriend them. Tyson Fury is a fighting man. And fighting isn't just when you're getting hit. Fighting is mentally dismantling and figuring out your opponent and how you beat them before you actually go into battle. He's brilliant at it. But if you know what it is and you see it, you just give it a nod. You say, Brendan would have loved Tyson Fury. He probably would have been questionable about some of his colourful language. But he would have loved Tyson Fury's style of fight, because he could do it all. And people say he's awkward. He's not awkward. He's unorthodox. So Brendan would have loved Tyson Fury because of his unorthodox approach to fight. So I get it, and I see it, and I see what Brendan would have loved about it. His style of fight. But in this fight is going to be tight. This fight's going to be close. This fight's going to be a toughie. And Tyson Fury is in a position to prove I am the best heavyweight in the world, regardless of what happened with Anthony Joshua and Ngannou. The comparisons were made. Styles make fights. Styles make fights. And I think the best version of Tyson Fury beats the best version of Oleksandr Usyk. In his press conference, he never said anything I'd never said before. He said Johnny Nelson stepped up to heavyweight, and he got bashed up he bashed up and couldn't make heavyweight. That's actually wrong. I beat a lot of heavyweights. But I've always said most cruiserweights, top cruiserweights, can beat most heavyweights, but it can't beat the top heavyweights, because the top heavyweights have either got too much height and power, too much weight on them. They've got too much. And historically, he was spot on right. He was spot on. So he never said anything I didn't say. And I didn't step up to heavyweight because I knew I couldn't compete with the big heavyweights successfully. I'm not just going to go in there to make the numbers up. But I knew as a cruiserweight, I could fight certain heavyweights and win silly, obscure titles around the world, which I did do. So what Tyson Fury said wasn't wrong. He was right in what he said. But he needs to, and historically, I actually thought, you know what? You're spot on there, because I don't disagree with you. So, and I got a few phone calls saying Tyson Fury, mentioned. I'm like, and what? What's he said that I ain't said? I actually agree with him. So the best version of Tyson Fury should be Oleksandr Usyk, but it's going to be a great fight. It's going to be a great occasion. I think what's happening out in Saudi Arabia has made this possible. I think the future intention of fights that are to happen, the fans benefit. And yes, you'll get fans complaining that it's in Saudi Arabia. That's for the ones that's actually going to watch. What about the ones around the world that we're always going to watch on TV anyway? So let's just stick to the sport itself and the fights that are being made. That's a good thing. And so I'm looking forward to it as much as the next man.
And just going back to your dream that we discussed a few moments ago, you said in the past you told Brendan about the dreams you'd had about your own fights.
Yeah.
What was your success rate like in terms of predicting via your dreams? Were you usually right?
100%. I even got the De Leon fight right, but I just misread it. In the De Leon fight, I said 2 days before the fight, Bren, I think I've won this. And he went, why? I've had a dream. Oh, go on then. I said, the referee had my hand up, which obviously I thought I'd won. But I looked across at De Leon and he was smiling. I thought, what's he smiling at? And I looked in the crowd. There's a guy, a white guy with a pinstripe suit on, but he had like a black man's afro. And I thought, he looks a bit odd, and a bow tie. And he's like, yeah, this was my dream. I said, I didn't understand that, Bren. He went, it's all right. Just keep it to yourself. All right, then. Anyway, the fight went the way it went. The fight was a draw. The referee put my hand up, or both our hands up, because it's a draw. I looked across at De Leon. He was smiling because he was a champion, so he kept his title. He never lost. Went back to Puerto Rico to get involved in a few other stinkers. Looked in the crowd. That was the one that wasn't his smile that matched my dream. It was the guy in the crowd in the pinstripe suit and the afro. And I'm like, what? You're the guy that... And that was it. And that's my dream rate is 100% now. And so when I had this, I'm like, do I say anything? Do I say something? Because they're all gonna come. You know what? If I'm wrong, but that's the dream, man. I'm just telling you a dream.
Right. Well, we'll see how it plays out in 3 weeks. I have to revisit
I had a dream.
this.
I had a dream.
Yeah, I mean, MLK may have been referring to a heavyweight fight at the time. You never know. Johnny, really appreciate it, mate. Best of luck for what's remaining of your fast. I know you're going to do it, but you know, I hope it's not too bad suffering wise. And yeah,
it's cool. It's cool, Danny. I'm going to do this and document it every day so everybody sees how it rolls on. Otherwise, I'll see you fight week. I'm looking forward to it. Good luck to both fighters. I think the build up and for our sport itself, we all benefit. The fans benefit, the fighters benefit. I love the fact that these guys are getting paid ridiculous money because for once, finally, the fighters are coming out with what they deserve rather than the promoters and the managers. You know, I know too many fighters that have left that game with absolutely nothing, and they're the ones that are putting their life on the line. So whatever characters they conjure up to get the imagination of the public interested, they're doing a great job. Look at what Ryan Garcia did. Come on, man. Come on. So I commend the fighters.
Great stuff, Johnny. Really appreciate it, and yeah, take care. Speak soon.
Nice one, Dan.
Cheers, mate.